Hello and welcome to another episode of the Audible. As you can see, well, the people that are watching the video, the people that are listening to the podcast, they can't see this, but Derek is out this week. He decided that he has more important things to do than to do this show with me. So I recruited a guest host by the name of Brent Pentecost. Brent, how you doing?
Not too bad. About you, bud?
Good. We used to do a sports podcast back in the day.
We did for a little while there. We kind of let it go when you moved to Des Moines.
You know, that seems to be the case. I moved and everything I did fell apart, apparently. That, according to everybody else, it's all my fault.
I'll take some blame on that, too. I was busy working with doing all the stuff at Iowa Western still, so it's rough.
But yeah, so same show, just different hosts. Nothing's really changing. So let's just get right into the meat of this. Big news coming out of the NFL. OBJ finally got paid. New York finally forked over the dough. They gave him a 5-year, $95 million contract with $65 million guaranteed, making him the highest paid receiver in the NFL. Brent, does he deserve it?
I'm not so sure that he deserves it because I feel that there's better receivers in the NFL than he is. Julio Jones, Antonio Brown, they are. I mean, how can you He's made his name off of really ridiculous catches, and they're great, and it's good. But he's also a head case.
Yeah, I will say that he's someone that definitely. There's a lot of baggage that comes with a guy like OBJ, but I think that this is a different team now because they went out, they got a new offensive, they got a couple offensive linemen, they got a good offensive mind, they got Saquon Barkley. I think what they were saying to him is that he's their future, and I think he is. I mean, it's arguable that there's other. I agree that. You know, you could argue that Antonio Brown or Julio Jones is the better receiver. You could argue that, but I just think that they had to pay him this much money. They had to.
I mean, they don't really have much of a choice. They have to lock up their marquee player. He's your moneymaker. He's selling your merchandise now. I mean, Eli's pretty much done. Probably should have tried to cut him this year, but they didn't have anybody behind him. So it's obviously a needed thing. They needed to sign somebody. They needed to sign him to a big contract. I just don't think he's worthy of being the highest paid wide receiver in the NFL.
I don't know. I think he's definitely, when you think of top 5 receivers in the NFL, who do you think of off the top of your head? You think of OBJ, you think of Antonio Brown, Julio Jones, AJ Green, and I don't know the 5th one, but I'm saying he's in there. He's in the upper echelon of those receivers. But
totally agree.
And you could also argue that you shouldn't pay a receiver that much money because Tom Brady is a prime example that if you have the right quarterback and the right system, you can interchange receivers and no problem. But I don't know. You got to give him that money. $65 million guaranteed is a lot for a wide receiver. But that wasn't the biggest.
It is.
That wasn't the biggest amount of money that came out of the NFL this week. Aaron Rodgers signed a 4-year, $134 million contract with 67 of that guaranteed. Again, I think this was the right call for Green Bay. Although Aaron Rodgers is 41. But
at the end of the contract, he's 41, right?
He's 41 now, so he'll be 45.
Aaron Rodgers there's no way he's 41 right now.
Yeah, he is. Look it up.
I'm going to right now. That's insane. No way that he's that old. Really?
He's been in the league forever.
I could believe that he's going to be 45 at the end of that contract, but I can't believe he's 34. So he'll be at the end of the contract.
I saw 41 somewhere, and I believed it.
Wherever you saw that was wrong.
34 might as well be the new 41.
Yeah, I mean, it could be at this point. I mean, it's all about the youth, right?
Yeah. This is another. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, as I say, I think it's a good contract on their part. At the end of the day, like you're not letting a franchise quarterback walk. You're just not doing it. It's crazy to me that like you look at a team like Buffalo and letting Tyrod walk this year. Like you finally make the playoffs for the first time in a decade, and now you're we don't need him. We'll just replenish and see how it works. Like, do you really think Petterman or Josh Allen are going to get them to the playoffs this year? Absolutely not. There's no way.
Yeah, this was a no-brainer. I'm surprised they kind of held out this long. I feel like this was something that should have been taken care of a long time ago. Who else is Green Bay going to look at? This is their franchise quarterback, and he has been that way since he took over for Favre. And quite frankly, he's all they have. They don't have a running game. They haven't had a running game in God knows how long. So This is something that I think should have been handled a lot sooner, but it doesn't matter. It's taken care of. It's happening right now. And good for Packers fans. I'm sure there's a lot of them out there that are very excited about this. So, good on them. I'm just saying at some point you got to get him a running back at some point.
They will. And I think what I heard from a lot of people is that I've seen so far, everybody seems to think that like he's taking too much money. He's not going to be able to get players around him. And it's like, it's not as bad of a hit as they think. And the way that they structure the contract is a big reason. Like, so as an example, Le'Veon Bell's contract, they agreed on money, but they didn't agree on the guaranteed side because Pittsburgh's big thing that they always do with their star players is they like to put in their money in roster bonuses and signing bonuses instead, because the roster bonuses and signing bonuses don't go as much on your cap hit. So they can kind of, there's no other way to put it, they're circumventing the salary cap a little bit by doing it that way. Well, the issue you run into is the roster bonuses aren't fully guaranteed. You have to be on the roster, so they could cut you and then that money's no longer there for you. So that ended up being one of the biggest contention spots for them not getting a contract signed, was because Pittsburgh wanted to add roster bonuses and not just do signing bonuses because it helps them fix the cap issue. And that's something that Pittsburgh's had a big issue with in the past decade. So,
yeah, the thing that also worries me about what the Packers are doing is with this much money, I said they need to get him a running back. I don't know if they can afford it because they took all that cap space out to pay this guy. Again, he's worth the money. I'm not disputing that Aaron Rodgers is worth the money, but this offensive line, they got to add more guys to it, because last year was an example of that suspect offensive line. He breaks a collarbone, you know what I mean? And he's 41 in air quotes as I joke about that, but he's at that age where he can't keep getting injured like this, and you do need to have that security blanket. But at the same time, I don't know if they'll afford it. So I think maybe more teams should use the Pittsburgh approach to those type of things. Speaking of players getting paid, do you think that they will pay Le'Veon Bell? Do you think the Steelers are going to pay him at some point?
No, he's going to hit free agency. Dude's going to get in an absurd amount of money to go play somewhere else. But the problem is somebody's going to go pay him all that money, and he'll have nobody around him outside of that. So his chances of winning, he's basically putting it on this year for him to win a championship this year. Like that's it. Like he's like, where is he going to go that's going to be able to pay him as much as he wants to get paid and have it as guaranteed money and signing bonuses and everything else right away? Like, there's no way that happens at a place where you're going to have more stars than just him. You know, he turned down a $15 million a year offer for 5 years, $70 million. And I think over half of it was guaranteed. And then they had the roster bonuses. With the roster bonuses, he had 75% of his money. Like, you were going and getting this money beforehand, and you don't have to show up and like play to get your game checks, basically. But it's not guaranteed, obviously, because of the roster bonuses. He's going to go somewhere that's going to give him 75% of his $70 million or $100 million contract that he gets, and it's going to be guaranteed. And they're not going to have anybody else around him. He's going to be the lone weapon. And it's one hell of a weapon to have. He can run the ball inside, outside, line him up in the slot. He can, play as a slot receiver at times too. The one thing about him that helps an offense so much is you can literally look at him as your
that's me
as a decoy. Okay, I was like, oh, is that me or you? He's just a decoy. The linebackers aren't stepping back and into coverage if you're feinting the handoff. Like if it's play action, you're looking into the backfield the entire way as soon as you see him. So it's it's crazy.
And honestly, if I'm Pittsburgh and you and I have talked about this, and I understand how valuable running backs are. I mean, last night when we were having the fantasy draft, I was talking about that, how you and I got stuck with bad positions in the draft.
Yeah.
But everybody went after a running back first because they're so valuable, and that is true. But I'm with you. I think if I have that money, I'm not going to pay Le'Veon Bell. I'm paying Antonio Brown.
That's where Pittsburgh was with it. He wanted to get paid more than Antonio's getting paid, and they basically were just like, "Look, man, like we believe that you're worth a lot of money, but we don't believe you're worth more than our star wide receiver." Who I'll be honest, Antonio Brown means more to that offense than Le'Veon Bell does. He really does.
Oh, yeah.
When Brown goes down, that offense struggles. When Bell went down, which consistently happened, they still made it work.
Right, and Bell is actually a pretty decent receiver. He caught a lot of passes last year. But, yeah, I think when you look at it in the NFL, it's a passing league, and the most valuable players offensively are going to be your quarterback and your receiver. And they're planning for the future because we don't know how much longer Roethlisberger is going to be in Pittsburgh. They drafted a quarterback as his replacement. So they're clearly going to that for the future. And why not keep a guy like Antonio Brown, give him the money? I mean, you just saw the Giants do it. I guarantee you AB is looking at the Steelers front office and being like, okay, you saw how much OBJ got paid, right?
He's pretty happy, though. He was the highest paid wide receiver till that contract got signed. So
sure.
It's one of those things that, as ridiculous as it is and how like flashy he is at times, Antonio Brown surprisingly has been fairly humble when it came to contracts and stuff like that. He's not a guy that's going to hold out. He's going to go work his ass off at training camp every year, even with a contract dispute. It's just one of those, like, that's how he is, like he's a solid guy for that. Like it's nuts that some of these wide receivers and people that are holding out, like Le'Veon Bell's already like disputing reports he's going to join the team on Monday, which, well, it would make sense for you to join the team on Monday when you play on frickin' Sunday, bud. Like, come on. If he doesn't want to play, it's fine. And it's going to play out kind of interesting because Roethlisberger's already in the open in the media advocated that James Conner should get more touches this year than Le'Veon Bell than he had last year because Le'Veon Bell's not there and James Conner was there for the entire training camp.
Right. Well, either way you look at it, OBJ got paid, Aaron Rodgers got paid. Not surprising.
No, not at all.
Especially not the money that Aaron Rodgers got. I will say Dan Patrick had a funny segment this morning where he's like, do you think that Tom Brady sees how much Aaron Rodgers got paid and like he's in bed with Giselle and he's like, oh, come on, I'm better than that. I'm worth more than that. And then at the same time, he's probably like, well, I do have 5 rings, so I think I'll be okay.
Yeah, I don't think that money really honestly matters to Brady as much. He's made so much at this point, and he's ridiculous, but he is a humble player that takes a little bit less to help the team get more to help him. So
yeah, he's taking pay cuts every year. So yeah, I don't think he's worried about it. So yeah, those guys got paid. Let's move on to the next segment of the show. Let's talk about the continuing troubles of the Ohio State Buckeyes. I mean, this story doesn't surprise me because I feel like Tom Herman is a guy who I got the impression of he likes to party. But back in 2014, when Tom Herman worked with Urban Meyer's staff and Zach Smith, apparently they went out to a strip club and had a great time.
Good old recruiting trip in Florida. And then they hit the strip club afterwards.
Of course. I think this is only news to me because it's like the shit has already hit the fan with Urban Meyer, and now people are just digging up as much dirt as they can to try to discredit this guy and discredit the staff. And I kind of sit back and laugh because, like, honestly, they go to a strip club. They're granted, Zach Smith is a walking piece of garbage, but they're two adults. They're going to a strip club. What's wrong with that?
Yeah, it's not so much that at this point, and I'm honestly kind of surprised there hasn't been more of an outcry after just getting 3 games. Hey, you're talking about a school that literally fired a national championship winning coach because his kids went and got tattoos in exchange for their gear. Like, they fired Jim Tressel over that. Like, that was a thing that they did. And it's weird. I don't know. Yeah. Like, it's.
Well, I think, and Derek and I kind of talked about this last week. And I think to me, this isn't surprising because it's Ohio State governing themselves. And it's no surprise to me that they went easy on Urban Meyer. And I think I agree with you. It's silly, but I think it's mostly because it wasn't an NCAA violation. I think they were not as harsh on him because he wasn't breaking NCAA rules. Now, yeah, you could argue that he was because of Title IX, but you saw the NCAA ruling on Michigan State, which was
baffling.
Just unbelievable to me. If there wasn't enough an example that the NCAA doesn't care about its student athletes, if they didn't already have that once, that's a great example. Are you kidding me? This man assaulted and raped these women, and they say, well, we didn't really find anything else. We didn't really break anything like sanctioning our rules. I'm sorry, but rape isn't one of your sanctioning rules?
Oh, of course not, man. What do you think that's a sanctioning rule? Come on. You know better.
I know, but
it's stupid and it's ridiculous, but it doesn't make any sense that like that. I mean, you have it right to a T. They're not pushing as hard at it because guess what? He technically didn't break any NCAA violations, which is, in my eyes, absolutely absurd that that's the way they look at it because you're talking about a dude that beat his wife. Like, whether you want to, let somebody get a reprieve for that or whatever, he still beat his wife. That's not cool. You can't do that. You just, as a moral thing, you can't do that. And if Urban Meyer knew and then hit it, he doesn't deserve to have a job there. Just because he's good at coaching football doesn't mean that you deserve to be there.
Well, that's the difference. If this were anybody else in this situation, I think if this were Nick Saban would still have a job. I think the difference is when you are, I think it's 77-8 at a school in that amount of time. I don't think that makes a difference to them. And I've said this a long time ago. I was going to post this article on loudandopinionated.com, but the story just kept changing. I ended the piece with what I said all the time. I said this about Art Briles and Baylor. I've said this about any situation where sexual assault or domestic violence or any sort of crimes are committed at a university. I always say this: human lives will always be more important than wins in a game. And I get it. There's a lot of money at stake here. It's a $1 billion industry. But for Pete's sake, this guy let this man beat his wife, not just at Ohio State, but at Florida. Like, this has been going on for almost a decade.
And he knew about it while he was at Florida, too, because he actually, legitimately knew about having to go. He let it be known that he got, hey, I was arrested for this. And then they kept him on staff after, which is just.
And Urban Meyer paid for counseling for him and his wife.
It's insane that that's what they're doing, but at the same time, I'm not really surprised at all by anything that happens in college football. Next thing you know, you could learn that fucking Nick Saban's been out there pulling a Paterno and they'll probably still end up having a job. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. Well, I think, and this relating it back to the Tom Herman and Zach Smith stuff, I honestly think at this point, like I said to start the segment, I think people are looking for anything and everything to just keep going after Nick Saban and the staff, because I don't think that, and the public opinion is it's not enough. 3 games is not enough. And I agree with you. I said at the outset he should be fired because that was okay. Say if this were a few months, this were like 3 to 6 months, and he knew that long, I could see a little bit of leeway. But knowing
for years,
for as long as he did, that's inexcusable. If yeah, and the way that he lied about it, and the fact that he comes out and lies straight to the media's face, and then continues his talk about how close him and his wife are. They share everything, and then the woman that gets abused said, "Hey, I texted his wife all the time." I'm sorry, but if my wife is working with someone that's getting domestic abuse, like being abused, she's gonna tell me because that's a big deal.
Yeah.
So it's disgusting, and I put that in the rundown because the more I see that happen, the more I hear about the dirty stuff that organization does. You didn't need to make me hate Ohio State more. You just tacked on, so it's fine. I keep adding to it.
Yeah, I fully agree with you on all of that. Like it's as if anybody needed fuel to the fire to hate Ohio State even more. So rough. It's dumb.
So college football, it's right around the corner. There's a couple of games going on right now.
Yeah.
Northwestern's beating Purdue as we're recording this.
31-17 right now, third quarter, I believe. I've got it on behind me. Looks like UCF is on their way to try and defend that national championship, 56-10 right now.
And Minnesota was winning pretty well. Saw that.
Yeah, they started blowing it away. I was saying, let me look up some of these scores real quick. There's quite a few. You drinking that beer just makes me want to go get a beer, but it's like not within arm's reach. It sucks.
I always have a beer handy.
Well, I've got this sweet beer cooler over here, but it's not. I can't get to it. I'm gonna have to take a second.
While you're doing that, this is the Husker Homer edition of the show. Let's talk about some news. The Huskers have named their quarterback. They named him last weekend on Sunday. Adon Martinez, the freshman quarterback, is the starter. I am actually very excited about this.
I am also excited, but at the same time, I'm very weary to see how it goes, considering they have no other scholarship quarterbacks outside of him right now.
After this news comes out, Tristan, is it Geba? Gebbia. He signed. He left the team, and it looks like I just reported today that he will be going to Oregon
State.
Oh, I just saw Oregon. I'm sorry, Oregon State. Yeah, you're right. So he's gonna end up with Mike Riley. So that's interesting. The joke was I saw on Twitter. There's a meme. And it's a dude. It said Oregon State's new recruiting plan, and the garbage can has the Oregon State logo, and the trash has the Nebraska logo, and he's dropping it in the trash. So they're taking all of our scraps. I do wonder, that news that came out a few days later, that worries me. But watching the tape on this kid and watching in spring, this is a quarterback that Scott Frost got because he knew he could run his style of offense.
Yep. Martinez is exactly what Frost wants for his offense, and Gebbia was the exact opposite. The dude's not a stellar athlete on his feet. He has a hell of an arm, but he's going to a spot where his talents will be used better, and there's no other way to put it. He left because he didn't have a starting position here, and he wasn't going to excel. Granted, the way that Martinez plays, I'll guarantee you our backup's playing at least one game this year. He's going to get injured. He's not a huge guy, and the way they use him, he's probably going to get hit hard. It's how it goes. So I feel like they kind of lost out a little bit on the depth, but they're doing all that they can to try and get Vidral's sit-out year rescinded so he could possibly be the backup to come in. So,
Well, and this is also kind of weird, and I don't know what the situation is, but I don't know the exact number of players that have left Nebraska, but it's actually a surprising amount of number of kids that have left the school. And I don't know what that is. I don't know how often that happens. I'm sure it happens a lot at other schools, but you're seeing a lot of guys leave, and I'm wondering if it's maybe this isn't what they signed up for. Maybe these are some Riley's kids that were like, okay, this is a lot more competitive and intense than what we were used to. I don't know, but Geba is the latest in a surprising number of players that leaving. Do you think it's just maybe just some kids just aren't as tough for the school? I don't know.
I think a little bit of everything on that. It's a lot tougher than what it was with Riley. The strength and conditioning is much different. They're providing a much better program now for these guys to get bigger, better, and in shape and be able to perform. Also, along with that, you're seeing a lot of the outside of the quarterback position, you're seeing a lot of these guys that are transferring at positions of depth for Nebraska. Like the defensive back they brought in from JUCO that left. Like he left because he got there and he realized that he's already going to be a junior next year and he's not going to play because the sophomores and the freshmen that were there are already out playing him right now going into fall practice. He gets through fall practice trying to help himself and he didn't help himself. So yeah, he's not gonna stay here and not play. That's kind of the way they look at it. And sadly, that's kind of the mindset of a lot of these players these days. No longer do they want to stay and try and get better and then take a starting job back. They just want to leave and go somewhere else where they can get the starting job.
Yeah, I think that's a lot of it too. And from what I read, Geba was kind of a douchebag anyway.
I didn't really read a whole bunch on that, but it's different. I mean, you can look at as an example, AJ Bush is a kid that comes to mind of a hey, I'm not starting, I'm going to transfer. Yeah. He started at Nebraska, came to Iowa Western 2 years ago. Last year was at Virginia Tech, and he's finishing up his senior season now at Illinois. He's going to be the starting quarterback for Illinois, which is absolutely hilarious because
the garbage fire. The garbage fire of Illinois. The bottom of the barrel of the Big Ten is where he ends up.
Dude, yeah, he ended up there. Illinois wanted him when he was coming out of Iowa Western, but he decided to go to Virginia Tech. Virginia Tech obviously he got beat out by a freshman. What's funny is, we won't go into names, but there's a coach that literally said about AJ Bush at one point in time, I've never had a kid on my team that I thought was legitimately trying to lose a game for me, but he was the first one.
Yeah, it's no surprise that Geba did this almost like I would say a few days after the news of Martinez being the starter. And honestly, I good riddance. I don't want to talk down to the guy because I'm a Husker fan, but to me, it just says that he's not a good teammate. I'm sorry. That's just how it works. This guy just happened to be better for the system and better for the situation. How do you respond to that? Well, you be a good teammate and you stick it out and you stay there. Who knows? Like you said, Martinez could get hurt at some point. Maybe Frost adds a wrinkle where you could be playing too and doing a 2-quarterback system. I just don't. I never understood the situation where it's like, well, I'm not the starter, so I have to leave. I think it's silly to have that mentality in football of all sports. Football is arguably the most ultimate team sport, and quite frankly, he's a bad teammate. And good on him. Maybe he has a successful career at Oregon State, but let's be honest, nobody does because Oregon State is always garbage.
Well, the thing about it is Oregon State has been good with Riley there at first. They were good about getting at least a couple guys each time into the NFL, but they were never successful from on a team standpoint, really. So, I mean, if his option right now is he wants to go be a pocket passer and see how it goes for him in the NFL, maybe he made the right choice. But also at the same time, you're going to a team that's had 3 head coaches in the past 3 years. So good luck.
Right. And I guess, if you, like you said, the NFL situation, that's a good thing to do because, Riley's always been known to run a pro-style offense, and that's a much more NFL-friendly offense than Scott Frost's offense. So maybe you're right on that aspect.
He's just going to be he's just like a consultant. He's not really helping them run the offense or anything like that. He's a consultant for them.
He's an assistant. So
did he end up going to? I thought when they hired him as a consultant instead. But I mean, if he ends up being an assistant, and the head or the offensive side, maybe that works for him. So
yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if that's his role because he's known for his work with quarterbacks. So that's not surprising. Good for Riley. People were talking. I've heard people talk bad about him. Look, it didn't work out in Nebraska. He wasn't a right fit for Nebraska, but he was a really. It's just he kind of sucked as a head coach. It happens. Okay.
Yeah. It does.
All right. So as we mentioned, the season's already sort of started. Brent, do you have the scores currently pulled up?
Yeah, 1 second. Give me 1 second here. Sorry. I went and grabbed a beer.
You're drinking on the job.
Not on the job drinking. So, rundown. UCF is up on UConn, 56-17. Why is that the only one that's up? Oh, it's a top 25. I need all of the FBS. Come on.
I think they're still at halftime with Northwestern and Purdue.
So Minnesota's at 41-10 on New Mexico State, fourth quarter. Ball State over Central Connecticut, 42-6. Nobody really cares. Northwestern, yes, 31-17 at half over Purdue.
Yeah.
10-7 on Tulane in the third quarter with 6 minutes left. And then the other big game going on right now, Oklahoma State versus Missouri State. 31-7 Okie State.
Surprising.
So, hang on. Who's it? Oh. Northwestern and Texas A&M is playing.
Northwestern State.
Northwestern State. Yeah, they're up 28-0 in the second quarter. So, yeah. Not a whole lot else going on. Well, Colorado State lost to Hawaii. Wyoming beat New Mexico State.
Yeah, those were week 0 games.
Yeah, that was last Saturday.
Look, I gotta say right now, I don't like the week 0 stuff. Stop. Okay, the real games, we get it, and I understand the idea behind it to get teams like Colorado State or Hawaii, Wyoming, get them a little bit more exposure. But nah, I don't like this week 0 stuff. Okay.
Yeah, I felt like it's a little weird because Iowa Western started last Thursday, so a week ago, and it was a little odd to have us start on first off, we'd never played a Thursday game before, which was different, and then on top of that, it was a week before technically all of football started, so it was real odd, different because I was like, oh cool, football starts this Saturday. It's not really.
So. I kind of like it with the JUCO schools. I kind of like it with that because I think that's a good way to get you in the mood, get you started. I don't know. I just don't like it when it's the division or the FBS schools. So that being said, let's jump into the week 1 predictions of the season. I gotta say, I think I pretty much know all of these. And I think I'm going to be right on all of them. Okay. But
all right.
Let's talk about the game that if you go and check out loudandopinionated.com, I wrote an article about what games to watch for week 1. This one was my number 1. I said no particular order, but this was on the list. LSU takes on Miami at Jerry World Sunday night. And I think this is going to be actually a pretty fun game to watch. I think it's going to be, if you like low scoring and defense, this is the game for you, I think, because this is going to be two very good defenses going at it. LSU doesn't have an offense, but they never really do. That's nothing new. So I have Miami winning this one 17-14.
I am going to throw you a curveball, and I'm going to take LSU that ends up winning a 31-24 game. I think
there's going to be offense in this one.
A little bit of offense in this. It's the first week, man. These guys, I don't know if it's going to be offense or if the defensive side of the ball is going to score for them. So we'll see. Either way, I think 31-24 LSU.
Yeah, I could respect. I'm going to be shocked, though. I mean, LSU's going to come out of the gate and beat a top 10 school. That's
we say top 10, but remember, it's Mark Wright. And
Mark Richt has a long history of losing games he shouldn't. Prime example, why did Miami lose to Pitt last year?
Because Pittsburgh's awesome. I don't have any other thing for that at this time, but yeah.
Okay, so we're split on that one. Next up, I have number 6 Washington taking on number 9 Auburn. This one's going to be at the Superdome. Well, is it the Superdome anymore? I thought they got rid of that. Sorry. It's in Atlanta. I know that.
Mercedes-Benz.
Right. They did demolish the Superdome. So, yes, the Mercedes-Benz Stadium. I think this one will be high scoring, I think, because you're going to see a lot two spread offenses going at it. I think this one will be a lot of fun to watch. But this one is probably going to have the most, to me anyway. I think this game will have the most playoff implications to it, because I think if Washington can win this game and win out, there's no denying that they'll be in. If they go undefeated with winning this game, you cannot have them not in the top 4. That's just ridiculous. And I think that Washington does win this one. I don't know a score. I would say probably 38-35. I think there's going to be a lot of scoring in that one.
Yeah, I'm right there with you, and I think Washington does take this also because Auburn is notorious for being slow starters, no matter the coach. I think Washington ends up taking it. It's going to be a little bit higher scoring. I think it's going to be a 56-35 game. I think Washington kind of puts the boots to them in this game. Even with the extra travel, I think Washington is going to be up and ready for it. Peterson, as their coach, is gonna have him ready to go. He always has, and he's used to that. He knows what it's like to kind of be that underdog, being at Boise State for as long as he was. He knows what it's like to get out there, get his team up and ready to go early, to prove to voters, like, hey, we're here, we're for real. So.
I would agree. I mean, he has had a few stumbles here and there at Washington, but as I wrote in the piece, I think that for the most part, he usually comes to the big games. I mean, yes, he's had 2 playoff appearances, no, he didn't have a playoff appearance last year, but he's been to 2 New Year's 6 bowls, and he got dominated in both of them. But look who he played. He played Alabama, and he played a very, very good Penn State team last year.
Yes, he did.
So next up on the list of the matchups that we want to get predictions for, the rivalry has returned to South Bend. It is Michigan taking on Notre Dame. Now, I put this and I jokingly said this on the article. I put this on the game to watch because I want everybody to realize the mass murder that's going to happen in South Bend. I think Notre Dame is one of the most overrated schools year in and year out. This year is no exception, and I think Harbaugh, this might be the year that Michigan finally gets over the hump. And I think that Michigan is a legit contender to win the East, and I think they're going to just massacre the Fighting Irish, and I think it's going to be 35-7. No contest.
I agree. I think Michigan's going to win this game, but I don't think it's going to be as much of a massacre as you're making it out to be. I do also have a vile hatred for all things the Fighting Irish, but I think –
I don't like Michigan either. I don't like either team.
I agree. I mean, the best case scenario for me was that the stadium would catch on fire and they couldn't play a game. But, that's neither – and hopefully nobody would get hurt either. I'm not trying to be that guy. But, no, I think it'll be a much closer game. I think it's going to be more of a 28-21 game. I think Michigan takes it, but I agree with you. Notre Dame consistently gets put higher in the rankings than they should consistently all the time, but that's just because it's notoriety. What other school has a freaking contract to put only their games on television? Like, it's stupid, but it's just back in the 80s, that's what got them there. So
touchdown Jesus.
Touchdown Jesus.
And I will say, like, 14 isn't super high ranking, but what part of last year to anybody did they think that this is going to be a marquee matchup? This is a top 15 team. I just don't see it. So yeah,
namesake. It's all it is. It's all namesake.
Yeah, it's all it is. Yes, I understand that they only lost by a point to Georgia. Whatever. So this next one, and this one makes me laugh. And God bless them, they're still going for it and they're going with it. But I can tell that this was a game that was scheduled. All these games are scheduled years in advance, obviously. But this was a game that was definitely picked by ESPN years in advance, thinking this was going to be a much bigger matchup than what it is. But Louisville is taking on Alabama in the Chick-fil-A kickoff. This is not even close. Alabama by at the very least, like 4 touchdowns. Like Louisville has no chance.
Louisville doesn't really have a chance at all, especially with losing their star quarterback in Lamar Jackson last year.
Which, by the way, a freshman quarterback is going to be their starter.
Yeah, it's going to be a real rough go for him. I feel this one will be over by the start of the second half. So. Oh
yeah, and the worst part is I saw that Louisville's offensive line talking trash on Twitter. When will teams learn? You don't talk trash to Alabama on Twitter. That just why give them more motivation to just drive you into the ground?
In general, it doesn't make sense to talk trash to a team that you know is better than you. Like. It was hilarious. It just as an example, last year before the first game of Iowa Western season against good old Indy and Last Chance U and that shit show of a show.
Hey, Jake Ryan, the voice of the Reavers, was the voice they used for the first game.
Yeah, but did you know what they gave him credit as?
No.
Him and Russ Nelson were both credited as announcer 1 and announcer 2. They didn't even ask to use his freaking call. He had no idea they were going to use it, and he was literally billed. If you look at the credits, he's announcer 1 and Russ is announcer 2.
That's really weird because they usually use the local guys, so that's kind of weird.
Well, and what was funny is go along with that, a bunch of their players down at Indy were literally tagging and talking trash to all the Iowa Western players, like, we're going to roll you. You guys ain't nothing. You just a bunch of Iowa kids. It ain't no big deal. Like, yeah, how'd that work out for them? 70-21? Like, come on, bud.
You're from Independence, Kansas. You can't talk shit on Council Bluffs, Iowa.
Well, I mean, none of them were actually from Independence because they only had one player on their team that was from Kansas, and it was their fucking kicker.
Hey, so they mentioned that in the show. It was a storyline.
Yeah, but the storyline's bullshit. Like, they tried using the whole – we're going to get sued because we're not allowing kids from other states to come in and play here, yada, yada. Nobody was going to sue the Kansas Jayhawk Conference because they couldn't play there because they weren't from that state. Nobody does that. You know how many times Iowa's been sued for that? And ICCAC requires you to have 50 Iowa players on your team. Yeah. So that's how it goes. People are just anything to make a storyline.
Moral of the story is don't talk trash before a team that's clearly better than you plays you.
Exactly.
So let's get in the homer section of the predictions. Akron taking on Nebraska in Lincoln. I think it's no mistaking that both of us think that Nebraska is going to win. The question is, how much do we think the Huskers are going to win by?
I don't know. I'm going to I think it's going to be probably about a 30 to 35 point game.
I think Nebraska's going to crush them.
I think I'd like to say it should be more, but I feel like, as it is in all times, like Frost is a smart coach. He's not going to come out and show everything that he's got this first game. He's going to save a little bit of that for Colorado. If this is a game that they should easily win, they should be able to dominate the possession of the ball, and a 30 to 35 point win it's nothing to scoff at. It is what it is.
No,
get out there, run some basic vanilla plays, and those should work for you against a team like this. So
I would agree with that. I would say a little bit less. I'd say about 3 touchdowns. I'd say about 20 to 21 points, I think would be fair. Either way, like I said, we both think Nebraska's going to win. And It's a good start to the season, but who knows? This is another homer one. South Dakota State taking on Iowa State in Ames. I think I look out for Iowa State. They surprised me last year. I think they had a season where I honestly think they got gypped. Okay, they should have beat Oklahoma State. They got gypped, but I think they're going to win this one too. I don't think it's going to be San Diego. South Dakota State's actually always been a pretty decent FCS school. They've been pretty competitive.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Jackrabbits.
I would say that closer than we think, but I still think a 2-touchdown win for Iowa State.
Yeah, I think it's still I think it's at least a 2-touchdown win for Iowa State. South Dakota State is a fairly decent FCS school, but the head coach down at Iowa State now has got that team buzzing, and they're playing well, and they're playing for each other, and just they're doing well, and it's only going to get better and better. It's exciting to see. I honestly am one of those that I like to see Iowa State succeed.
Oh yeah, me too. I have to. My significant other went to Iowa State, so I have to like them.
Yeah, it's kind of forced upon you.
Yeah, well, and hey, no problem. They were better than Nebraska last year, so I had no problem rooting for them.
Yeah, I went and watched the. I was actually in Ames. We went to the Iowa State Texas game on that Thursday last year. It was a hell of a time, and I did not realize that Iowa State parties.
Oh yeah,
they do. They party hard. It was hilarious. We're sitting in the tailgate, and people like that didn't bring like food or a grill or anything. Legit, they have a lane down the middle that the pizza delivery people can drive to. And you just tell them what lane you're in, and you just walk down to the end of the lane, get your pizza, and walk back down. Like that's phenomenal.
Yeah, I've tailgated at least. I want to say I've been to. I want to say I think 3 or 4 games, and I've tailgated each time. And Ames is such a fun town.
And the fans are cool. Like I'll say this, like back when I was going to Nebraska games consistently, like Iowa State was always one of the most fun ones to go to. This is back in the Big 12 days. I'm old, sorry. So like Iowa State were always some of the fans that were like fun to have there. Like they could get their ass kicked consistently and they'd still just be there having fun, talking. And they was just fun. Like you went in there against with the Texas fans coming up, and like they're just fucking assholes. Like,
yeah, I will say I've noticed this. There's some sort of mutual respect between Iowa State and Nebraska fans. You can't say that about Iowa fans. Iowa fans are just jerks. They
want to rub it in your face that they beat us or they beat Nebraska. I shouldn't say us. Oh boy. And then of course the right away is let's take a look at your sweet trophy case.
Not all, okay, it's a negative thing to say. Not all Iowa fans are dirtbags, but majority.
Yeah. It's just one of those things. Like, I feel like that's kind of what happens when you grow up a Hawkeye fan. You just have to grow up to be kind of a dirtbag.
Well, and it's a rivalry. I'm not supposed to like them.
No.
I'm not supposed to. They have consistently kicked Nebraska's ass the last 3 years and made it into a rivalry. So now I have to hate them.
Well, see what's funny. Rules. I've always looked at it. It's kind of odd. Like, I look at it the way my dad acts with it too. Like, as a Nebraska fan through and through, but he always like, I don't really feel like Iowa's really a rivalry. Like, I kind of like to see Iowa succeed. It's not bad. Like, that's how I've always felt. Now I just feel like it's weird to like, oh, now I have to hate them. I hope they lose all the time. Like, because now we're a rivalry. Well, it's not really a rivalry. The rivalry for Nebraska in the Big Ten is Wisconsin. It's Wisconsin.
It's not yet. Nebraska desperately wants it to be a rivalry, but Wisconsin doesn't see it as a rivalry because they kick our ass every year.
Well, I agree with you, but that game is what gets more people hyped than any other game on the schedule every single year.
No, I agree.
Honestly, the back and forth, if you're looking at a back and forth, because it's a rivalry, Northwestern's the closest thing that Nebraska has to that right now.
Oh, yeah.
But the game that you circle every year as a Nebraska fan, you want to see good, bad, whatever, it's always Wisconsin. Nobody gives a fuck about Iowa. Like, oh, man, we're going to play Iowa again. Cool.
No, yeah, I totally agree. And I was more than excited when I found out they were in the same division. I was like, yes, that means we will guaranteed play them every year.
Yeah.
And then they added a trophy a few years ago. So I was like, okay, so we're trying to make this a legit rivalry. But
They have been, and they're getting there.
I absolutely 100% agree with you. If you want to talk about a legit rivalry, it is Nebraska Northwestern. And it's funny to me because every year it is the away team wins. Almost every single time they play, the team that's on the road wins. Almost every time.
Yeah.
And it's super weird. So those are our predictions. The final prediction, the most homer of the homer, my alma mater. It'll be Brent's alma mater in December, if I'm correct.
Correct.
Iowa Western 1-0 should be defending national champions. I will admit that.
I fully agree too.
To the day I die, the school that I went to should be a national champion. But they
calm down. Their story of the year.
they won their first game. Who did they play the first week?
We played we actually played in Coffeyville. Ooh. And took on Coffeyville, the old alma mater of Mike Rozier, former Heisman Trophy winner. Took a 19-6 win. The offense has got a little bit of kinks to work out. It's different than JUCO world. You only have 2 years, and this year was one of those years where they don't have a single returning starter.
I don't think people understand that. Yeah. With JUCO, if you're a really good team like Iowa Western was last year, you lose everybody the next year. That's just what happened.
And it's honestly how it goes. But like the defensive side of the ball, my God, are they good? They're such a good on the defensive side. Going into this week, Iowa Central, new coach, Montalto has done a lot to change the culture there. They used to be kind of just the walk-on. Everybody just walked all over them, the ICCAC and the Kansas Jayhawk Conference. Well, they went down and beat Butler. So it's going to be interesting to see how it goes from there with them. This is the first time actually ever that both teams are going into their game both 1-0. They both are going in undefeated, and it's never happened before in the 10 years that they've played. So this will actually be the 11th meeting because they played twice in the first season.
I'm taking the Reavers by 10. Iowa Western wins by 10.
I have to go with my actual prediction that I put up on our board because I travel with the team. I do the video work for them. So we have our board with all of us that work for the Reavers Sports Network. We made we always make a prediction for the game prior to going out. My prediction is a 56-19 win for Iowa Western. I think that the defense is going to get at least 2 touchdowns in this game, either by fumble or interception. The defense is that good this year. I'm telling you. If you get a chance, check it out on GoReavers.com. You can do the stream or listen in on 89.7 The River, and you can listen to it there too. It's Iowa Western's defense is just their beast this year. It's been that game down in Coffeyville. They had 2 plays total that were actually big. Other than that, they didn't allow a single thing. It created 5 turnovers in the game, and they dominated.
Is that 6 points, 2 field goals?
19-6, they scored 2 touchdowns and 2 field goals. They missed the extra point. They went for 2 on an extra point and missed it.
I would have been impressive if it was 2 field goals. But
yeah.
A touchdown, 1 touchdown still good.
They allowed the 1 touchdown, and it was off of a broken play. The safety bit in, and the cornerback thought he had help over the top, and the receiver got past him, and it went for a 70-yard touchdown. Those are the things that happen sometimes. It's just how it goes. But the offense had scored enough that they could allow that 1 touchdown for the day, and it worked out for them. So that defense, though, I'm telling you, they're that defensive front. Elias Bell, Elijah James, Malcolm Lee, Devin Drew. These kids are just absolute monsters. And then you have the number 1 defensive prospect in all of JUCO and Chester Graves, who's playing in a different position right now that he was last year. Last year he was the edge rusher on the defensive end. Now he's actually playing the will linebacker spot, which lets him rush or sit back in coverage because he's that good of an athlete. So it's been interesting to watch this team practice and play. So hopefully they come back out and take the Kinney Cup again would be the 9th time in a row.
All right. Well, that's the best way to end this show. Go Reavers, obviously, because like I said, they're my alma mater and Brent's soon to be alma mater. I can't wait. Football's going on right now, but the thick of it we're in. I always say this every single year, and I will say it until the day I die, that opening weekend in college football should be a national holiday. It's Christmas for me. I'm very excited. I'm sure you're very excited. Thank you all for listening to this and watching this. If you want to get more of this show and the other show that we do, it's loudandopinionated.com. You can go there. You can find all the other episodes, the first episode of this and the sorta spin-off episode that we did on the Loud and Opinionated proper show. But yes, you can go there. You can also follow us on social media at Loud Opinionated. And you can like us on Facebook, Loud and Opinionated, and you can even follow me on social media at a Lumberjake. If you have any suggestions for the show, Jake at loudandopinionated.com. Brent, thank you so much for filling in tonight. You're so good at it. I might just talk him into adding you a full time. I'm just saying.
Man, this has been fun. Thank you for having me on. It's been great. I really enjoy talking sports, especially with you. And I kind of miss our little rants that we used to have during our podcast we were running there before.
Yeah. I mean, if anything, we could do whatever. It's whatever. I mean, I could even add another. I love the podcast. If people that know me know this is what I do as a hobby. So, maybe we'll have our own show on loudandopinionated.com. I don't know how it goes, but thank you again for watching and listening, and have a great day. And because Brent's here, go watch some sports.
Nerd.